Good morning. Bless you. Morning. All right. So this morning we're ready to start with Jacob's family. As the title to it is Genesis chapter 47, and it says the title to the chapter is Jacob's family settles in Goshen. That's Goshen, Egypt. If you remember, they came from the land of Canaan, where there's a drought in both places, obviously, but they're there where Joseph can take care of them. And so let's read the story and see what it says about it. Genesis chapter 47, verse 1. Then Joseph went in and told Pharaoh and said, "My father and my brothers, and their flocks and their herds, and all that they have come out of the land of Canaan. And behold, they are in the land of Goshen." He took 5 men from among his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to his brothers, "What is your occupation?" So they said to Pharaoh, "Your servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers." They said to Pharaoh, "We have come to sojourn in the land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, for the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now therefore, please let your servants live in the land of Goshen." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is at your disposal. Settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land. Let them live in the land of Goshen, and if they know any capable men among them, then put them in charge of my livestock." So here we have, obviously, Pharaoh had already put, Joseph was basically in charge of the whole land of Egypt. I mean, this is what lures me so much, is that here was a man, a person who was despised by his brothers, sold into slavery, and think about this. If you don't see the hand of God here, then it all boils down to really a coat of many colors. If Jacob hadn't made the coat of many colors, his brothers, Joseph's brothers, would not have gotten jealous. Probably not, would they? But Jacob made him the coat of many colors, this special coat, because Joseph was the apple of his father's eye. He made this coat of many colors for him. It made his brothers jealous because Jacob didn't make them a coat of many colors. And because they were jealous, they sold him into Egypt. Okay? And they sold him into Egypt, and because they sold him into Egypt, he got bought by Potiphar. Potiphar's wife tried to molest him, and through that he ended up in jail. Through that he ended up interpreting the dream of one person, who then ended up telling Pharaoh about it, and Pharaoh then asked him to interpret his dream, and through all that, you see the hand of God. Each little step that happened, God didn't force anybody. They still did, every one of them. The brothers did exactly what they wanted, didn't they? They were jealous, and God didn't force them to. He didn't make them be jealous, but He knew exactly what they would do, and He decreed that they would do it. Okay. What we don't realize is God can see our hearts, our thoughts, our intentions. He can even see the things we haven't. He knows everything that you're going to do, think, and say tomorrow and next week. He knows exactly the date that you will die, how you will die, why you will die, and where you will die. It's already been preordained, predestined, and no matter how it happens, it was all in God's plan. Okay? So here we have, they come to the land of Egypt there, and Pharaoh gives them the best of the land, and then even realizes that, man, everything Joseph touches turns to gold. Basically, it becomes, it prospers. Does that make sense? And so he's like, yeah, if there's one of you guys among you that's really good with animals, put them in charge of my animals too. Verse 7 says, "Then Joseph brought his father Jacob and presented him to Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Jacob, "How many years have you lived?" So Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The years of my sojourn are 130. Few and unpleasant have been the years of my life, nor have they attained the years that my father lived during the days my fathers lived during the days of their sojourn." In other words, he's pointing out he's had a hard life. God has disciplined him, hasn't he? Jacob, if you remember, Jacob is the guy that he's unhonestly, you might say, he lied to get it, took his brother's birthright. He's the twin brother of Esau, if you remember. God didn't, remember we read about he was the king of two cities. Everything that Esau did seemed to prosper. God allowed him to have heaven on earth. But Jacob was a little different. Jacob, he disciplined him. He made his life, not so much made it hard just for it to be hard, but he was teaching him, training him up. He wasn't punishing him so much as he was training him. Okay? When you discipline a child, you don't discipline them to hurt them or to you discipline. It's not something you do to a child. It's something you do for a child. Okay? Discipline encourages a child to want to do right. It teaches a child to do right. In the same way, when God disciplines us as adults, sometimes it's not pleasant when it's happening, is it? Some discipline just isn't fun. And Jacob is pointing out that his life has been hard and he hasn't even lived as long. But I don't think Jacob realized he lived a lot longer than I probably will. He didn't realize later on in life a lot of people wouldn't live as long as he already had lived, he was... anyway, so verse 10 says, "And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from his presence. So Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave them a possession of the land of Egypt in the best of the land, in the land of Ramesses, as Pharaoh had ordered. Joseph provided his father and his brothers and all his father's household with food according to their little ones. Now there was no food in all the land, because the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. Joseph gathered all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the grain which they bought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house." So you got to understand here, Joseph had taken, okay? He didn't take everything that everybody had, okay? He didn't, in the whole land of Canaan. I've lost part of the people's attention. He didn't take everything that everybody had. But he made a tax. He took a portion of what everybody had and stored it up, right? It'd been smart if some of those people had figured out how to do that for themselves, but anyway. So Joseph stored it up. And then and some of them might have done something like that, but anyway, when everybody ran out of grain, he started furnishing with grain, and he sold grain to people. Well, that money had to go, people were buying grain from him. And so he was bringing that money into Pharaoh's house. So now, when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us food, for why should we die in your presence? For our money is gone." Now they have no more money, but Joseph still has food, obviously. Then Joseph said, "Give me your livestock, and I will give you food for your livestock, since your money is gone." So now he has all the money, and he's fixing to get all the livestock. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them food in exchange for the horses and the flocks and the herds and the donkeys. And he fed them with food in exchange for all their livestock that year. So If you brought all the livestock you had, you got to eat good for a year. When that year was ended, they came to him the next year and said to him, we will not hide from my Lord that our money is all spent, and the cattle are my Lord's. There is nothing left for my Lord except our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for food, and we and our land will be slaves to Pharaoh. I mean, if you're starving, you have nothing left but your land. They were willing to, there was no food, guys. What does this teach us? This should teach us that the value of our life, each person, the value, the things that we are willing to do to preserve our life. We should be even. We should be willing because our life is a gift, isn't it? It's a gift from God. Every day that we get to live is a gift from God. There's some people don't get that gift. Some people takes them before they're out of the womb. God takes some people before they're out of the womb. He takes some people when they're children. Some live to be old people, but nobody is promised tomorrow. But every day we have to be here should bring glory to God, and we should be thanking Him and praising Him for what He has given us and what He has done for us. Does that make sense? But these people were out of money. Okay? They had no money left. They had no livestock left to eat. I don't know. It seems like, you could have ate the livestock, but if you can't feed the livestock, then how can they're going to get skinny before you get them ate. I don't know. Maybe, they were in a predicament there, Think about it. All right, so they say, so give us seed that we may live and not die, and that the land may not be desolate. So they didn't want to all die off from starvation, them and their children. Results of the famine. So Joseph bought all the land of the Egyptians all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For every Egyptian sold his field, because the famine was severe upon them. Thus the land became Pharaoh's. As for the people, he removed them to the cities from one end of Egypt's border to the other. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had an allotment from Pharaoh, and they lived off the allotment which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they did not sell their land. Now, people say, but I thought there weren't priests yet. Is that what's going through your mind? These weren't priests to the high God. Okay? Egypt was known, and there might have been some priests to the high God. I don't know. But Egypt was always known for its, or I shouldn't say always known, but Egypt, I know when Moses went there, right? The Pharaoh at that time served all kinds of gods, and that's what all your plagues that happened, okay, was to show that God is more powerful than each one of their different gods. Does that make sense?
Wasn't Moses under Ramesses?
Yes, it was Ramesses. But this was before. You got to remember, this Pharaoh is a different Pharaoh than Ramesses. Okay, so it's not the same one. We'll see that later on. That Pharaoh died. This Pharaoh dies, and then a new one comes in that doesn't know anything about Joseph, and in the meantime, the children of Israel get so big that they become afraid of them, so they make them into slaves. There were priests. I'm not sure. I know there wasn't a law given at that time yet. Okay, I know that God had revealed Himself to Jacob. To Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Right. That was basically the only people in the world that God had revealed Himself to, that we know of, I should say. Okay? If there were others, we don't know. But we do know this, that the law wasn't given at this time yet. The law is still 400 and something years before the law will be given, because they're not slaves yet. We don't know how long they lived there before we know they became a great nation. We know there was enough of them that they were scared. The whole land of Egypt was scared of them. So they turned them into slaves, okay? So it could have been a long time from the time of now till they even started slavery. And once they became slaves, we know that they were slaves for like 430 years. Okay, so there's, and I'm sure there's ways to figure out that amount of time. I'm just not sure myself, okay? I'm sure there's people who, smarter than me, theologians, who can tell you exactly how long they were in Egypt, how long they were in slavery. That takes sitting down and studying a lot of dates, and I don't have that knowledge. Haven't been through that training. It's not something I am able to do at this point yet. But we do know this. We know that they were in slavery for like 430 years. So think about this. The law, the giving of the law, is still a long ways off now. So, but there were priests. Were they priests to the high God, to the one true God? We don't know. Probably, I would doubt it, kind of, but we don't know for sure. So it goes on. It says, then Joseph said to the people, "Behold, I have today bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Now here is seed for you, and you may sow the land." Okay, so I don't know if the famine was coming to an end, or it wasn't as bad. They were not able to sow some, and were able to reap some. I'm not sure how that worked, but now he was giving them seed. So obviously they were going to sow some of the land, right? So he says, but he also, the land all belonged to Pharaoh, and he moved them all into like city-states, where the land would be open for planting. But he allows them to go back and plant it, okay? And he says, "At the harvest you shall give a fifth to Pharaoh, and 4/5 shall be your own for the seed of the field, and for your food, and for those of your household as food for your little ones." Now, he didn't take it all. He owned the land. He could have. He didn't have to, but he basically gave him the land back. But because of it, a fifth of it belonged to Pharaoh. Does that make sense? Pharaoh now owned a portion of the land. Pharaoh actually owned the land, but they were getting to share profit. Would that make sense? They get to go out and they get to plant their seed, and he even furnished them with seed. And they get to plant it, and they get 4/5 of it for themselves. Alright, so verse 25 says, "So they said, 'You have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's slaves.'" They still considered themselves Pharaoh's slaves. Okay? But they didn't mind, because not only had they lived, their children got to live. He preserved their lives, and they would have died otherwise. They were very aware of that. They realized that. Instead of complaining for the situation they were in, they realized, hey, this happened, and so he saved my life, and they weren't. If you notice, there was no complaining. Verse 26 says, "Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt, valid to this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth. Only the land of the priests did not become Pharaoh's." And now it says valid to this day. It was valid to the time of the writing, okay, of this. Not, we don't know if that goes on. I don't know, it might go on today, but I don't know. But anyway, now Israel lived in the land of Egypt, in Goshen, and they acquired property in it, and were fruitful, and became very numerous. Now, do you see a promise fulfilled there? They became fruitful and very numerous. What does that mean? God blessed their women with babies, didn't he? He opened their wombs, and they became fruitful and very numerous. God promised him that he would make them a great nation. Okay? And guys, this is going to literally happen in Egypt. God is literally using the Egyptians to support them becoming a great nation. And even when they made them slaves, and they're slaves for many years, God still uses the Egyptians to his purpose. And if he hadn't, he made them into slaves, and I want you to imagine this, because he made them into slaves and they were persecuted and they were beaten, they were treated badly, when God comes in and shows his power, okay, and rescues them, you would think that they would then completely give their allegiance to him. Wouldn't you think so? Why didn't they then?
Because they can't.
They can't. That's what the whole purposes of the Old Testament. They never did trust him, choose him, seek him. The only time they ever chose him or trusted him or did seek him in any way was when they were being oppressed. And they did it for self-preservation, not because they loved God. Okay? Alright. Verse 28. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. When the time for Israel to die drew near, he called his son Joseph and said to him, Please, if I have found favor in your sight, place now your hand under my thigh and deal with me in kindness and faithfulness. Please do not bury me in Egypt. But when I lie down with my fathers, you shall carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burial place. And he said, I will do as you have said. He said, Swear to me. So he swore to him. Then Israel bowed in worship to the head. Bowed in worship at the head of the bed. Don't know why it looked like two from where I was sitting. But anyway. Now, did you notice he told him to put his hand under his thigh? Who did that before? Where did we see that before? Abraham. Abraham asked who?
Isaac.
No, his servant. His servant, when he was going to find a wife for Isaac. When he went to go get Rebekah, remember? And I don't know why they did that. Put your hand under my thigh and swear. I'm not sure what that means. I probably won't ask any of you boys to do that ever. But this is something they did. Okay, I don't know why that was important or what that symbolized or what it meant. But one thing you notice, Joseph carries Jacob's bones back, and he buries him. And I think it will tell us when we get to it. But he gets buried at Mamre at the cave where Abraham bought for his wife Sarah. Okay. All right. Any thoughts? Yes, no, maybe. All right. So we're coming close to the end. We have like, I think, 48, 49, and 53 chapters left. And so we should finish with Genesis this week. We've been at it for a long time. We took a break from it for a while, I know, but we're in the mood. Huh?
No, it's been longer than 50 days because we took a break.
Yeah, I know. For a while there. We took a break there for the move. We studied in Acts for a while. We studied in a couple different places. So, all right. If nobody has any thoughts, let's close in prayer and we'll get our day started. All right. All right. Let's pray. Father God, thank you for this day, Lord. I thank you for your word. Father, I thank you for your love that you give us, Father, that you are in control of all things, that you are sovereign, that you, Father, everything that happens in the world, to the smallest, minutest detail, you are sovereignly in control. That nothing happens outside of your control. Father, I pray that you just open the hearts and minds, Lord, the leaders of our countries, the leaders of our churches, that they would realize that they would come to understand that if you are not sovereign, or how should I put it, Father, if we have free will, then you are not sovereign. And if you are sovereign, then we do not have free will, because everything happens according to your decrees, according to after the counsel of your will, according to your purposes. Father, I pray, Father, right now that you should impress that in the hearts of those that might see the video, that might follow the leaders of our country, the leaders of our churches, the fathers of homes. Lord, I pray, Father, for this family, that you would open our hearts that we would be broken for the lost of this town, that we would long to reach the lost, to tell them about your salvation. Lord, I pray that you go with us today, that you help us to get the things done we need to do, but that we, Father, the things we say and do would bring glory to you, that we would not be angry with each other, that we would, Father, that we would, above all, long to bring you glory. Father, I ask you to be with the boys as they go do the job they're going to do today. Keep them safe. Pray that the things they say and do would bring glory to you, that they would let your light shine to those that come in contact with them. Lord, just pray that you would be with Dawn and help that her headache would get better. Lord, just be with me as I prepare for the next week, for the lessons I have to teach, for the class that I am studying for. Lord, just forgive us where we've failed. Pray in Jesus'